One of the neat thing, one of the neat things about the November meet confer is we had to break it into two parts because we had to move it. And then Evan decided to leave early, so it was interesting. But one of the, I'll start with a couple of the short things that we talked about with them. One of the asks that we had for them was, did the governor instruct the agency to make room in the upcoming budget for substantial raises? And the reason that we asked that question was because the negotiations team had made that ask of the governor. They'd met with the governor and said, will you instruct each of the agencies to make room for that in the budget? And told MMB to, and he said that he'd tell MMB to do that. DEED had not had their instructions yet. They said it's possible that they'll get that instruction, but they said that they had not had those instructions yet. So that's what we're reporting back to negotiations. We also gave them verbal notification that we followed up in writing that we're planning to do supplemental bargaining. We'll talk a little bit more about supplemental bargaining a little bit later in this meeting. We asked for a copy of the latest affirmative action report, and we're told that we would receive it when it was available. And we asked for more representation at these meetings from division heads and other decision makers. And it's interesting because management asked, like, they were very surprised that some of those people wanted to come. And some of you that have been on Meet Confer before, or maybe have come to meetings, we used to have a lot of people that would come from management, and now there's only usually a few people that come. And I think sometimes that's good because it doesn't get bogged down, but sometimes it's not good because we have to then have follow-up meetings to get those decision makers to come to the meetings. So sometimes it's good when they're not there because they don't need to be there for certain decisions to be made. So it really kind of depends on the topic that we're talking about, but it would be good to have them there at some more of the meetings, especially when it involves divisions and, you know, things that are going on in the divisions. So then we talked about the building issues at GMB, and those of you that are at GMB know that they're many and varied. We asked for improvements for the lactation rooms and talked about how some of the gender neutral restrooms have been broken or not serviced or both. We talked about lack of accessibility. We talked about the vending machines not being stocked, missing appliances, still problems, still lack of access to the fitness center, and asked when the bike parking would actually be there because we've had to park bikes in alternate locations, that the temperature issues are still awful. I can't believe I have had to talk about pigeon droppings as much as I've had to. If somebody had told me 5 years ago I'd be talking about pigeon dung as much as I've been talking about it in the last year, I would not have believed them, but yes. We talked about the lack of hot water in the bathroom, the fact that the trash cans, since we don't have trash pickup at our desks, the fact that the central locations tend to be overflowing, especially on the 11th floor. We talked about elevator issues and things like that. And we got some updates, and then we're going to get more updates as we go. And then we talked about the lack of front desk staff at the various career force and the lack of safety that has brought about. And we talked about just the fact that some of the career force that does have front desk staff, we asked about some of the training that they have. Maybe some of you that are on the Meet Confer could weigh in here, but I did not find any of the answers that we got very satisfying. We've been bringing career force issues to the Meet Confer and getting a lot of pushback, and we'll continue to bring them, but I think at some point we may need to bring some action forward on that. And because frankly, I'm going to ask that if you're not talking, if you mute your mic, that would be really super helpful.
Hi, Danny.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and mute all mics, and then as you need to talk, you're going to unmute. All right, hopefully that'll help. All right, Anyway, so we're gonna keep pushing on the career force issues, but I suggest that you try and just go ahead and if you're impacted by some of these issues, talk to your leaders about them, bring them forward to us so that we can keep bringing them forward. I know that they're frustrating, and yes. And Sheena, did you have something that you wanted to say? You can certainly unmute or maybe type it in chat. Oh, okay. I just saw the hi, thank you. Okay. All right. And so with the career force, and we just talked about the training, and we also talked about the fact that there's a lot of issues with like possibly telephone calls not always getting routed the right way, especially with the lack of like a centralized front desk at a lot of the career force locations. Okay. We talked about temporary unclassified. Most of the temporary unclassified staff are in unemployment insurance right now. At the last count, I'd had 80. So they said that they recently classified 30 staff. So that leaves roughly about 50. Ryan said he was going to look into what the plan was to classify the remaining staff and get back to me. So that's an outstanding item that we should be getting some follow-up on soon. And there also were a backlog of reallocations that they did get through most of the big backlogs, but we also have received a promise to get an account of the outstanding reallocations that are outside the 60 to 90 day window. And if there are any that are still outstanding, we're going to find out how many of those are, what division they're in, and we should be receiving account of any of those soon. But there had been a lot of them that were like at a 1 year mark, some of them even longer than that. And they did get through most of those. They had hired 2 temporary staff to get through most of the reallocations. And so most of those should be caught up, but there are things that we should be, keeping an eye on and just making sure that they stay. And I did see a question in chat, like what sort of actions should MAPE be taking? And that's an interesting question, because it's kind of like, what sort of actions is MAPE willing to take? Are we willing to, say, send in a petition? Are we willing to say, all come to the next meet confer and watch, while we talk about this issue, maybe put some pressure on, maybe send some letters to the commissioner's office, because I'm going to be talking about an action in a bit that we are going to be asking some folks to take around safety, when we talk about some of the safety issues that we've been seeing, and asking folks if they want to join us in Greater Minnesota, if they want to be part of that. And because we've already talked to people about it here in First National Bank, and we're going to be kicking that off soon. First National Bank, Great Northern, and we're going to be kicking that off soon. And I want to talk about it a little bit more in a moment. So really, that's what we've had on the calendar for this current meet and confer. Upcoming meet and confer, we're going to be adding safety to that. And the reason for that is we've been having a lot of issues with safety in downtown St. Paul lately. I know we're probably not the only ones, but it's become quite a lot lately in downtown St. Paul. We've had members be attacked. Some people have been injured, maybe not tremendously so, but there have been a few injuries. There have been people definitely getting scared. I know that like the event planning staff has had their stuff stolen off the 12th floor, and not much action's been taken because of it. And people have been followed into the elevators and scared. And when they share the events with their supervisors, it's not shared beyond that. And so people aren't even aware that this is happening. And And so, the word gets out and then it kind of spreads sort of like wildfire. But, there's been a lot of concern about safety. We held a meeting to talk about it amongst ourselves. About 100 people came to talk, in the local 501 group, which is kind of a significant percentage of us, considering that other than UI, most people are only in about 1 day a week. And so we talked about it and people are concerned. Some of the actions that we talked about taking were to pushing for more telework for those of us that are not. Some of the other things we talked about were, to put some pressure on more safety things for management. So we'll be taking those to the next meet confer, asking for more security, asking for some more things. And I don't know, some of you probably saw the safety notes that went out at the end of the year. That wasn't a coincidence. They know that we've been agitating about this. But also, we created a template to do a letter writing campaign to our management to ask them to do some improvements about this. And we should be able to be safe at our jobs. Not everybody can telework. I mean, those of us that can should be able to if we want to, but there are some people that just literally can't for their jobs, and not everybody wants to. Like, I can see Andy given here, he doesn't like to, and if that's not what you want to do, you should be able to be safe at your job. You should be able to feel safe coming into work, and they should be able to do more to keep us safe. If that's what you want to do, is be at your job. And the people that are coming into Great Northern Building, they don't have a choice about being there. And I'm guessing that there's other locations around the state that people are having similar concerns. And, nobody should have to feel that way coming into work. So I want to open up the floor for a few minutes to, I don't want it to take the whole meeting because we have a whole meeting dedicated to this, but not everybody had a chance to have that, to talk about this a little bit. And see if those of you that are maybe outside of the Great Northern Building want to join us. And those of you that are inside of it, they want to join that email campaign. So raise your hand, if you want to talk. Yeah. Okay, Andy, you didn't actually, there's a function on Zoom to do it.
Yeah, I'm looking for it.
Yeah.
But I would be happy to join you because the safety issue has never been taken that seriously by management. They kind of poo-poo it and, oh, it was just a one time. But we had an armed guard for the longest time at the St. Paul Workforce Center because we had people come in off the streets and get into brawls and active drug users and such. So it is a real problem. And I think management doesn't realize it because they're not impacted probably, but the rest of us are, and we're going to have to keep after them. So yes, I will help you out.
Yeah. I mean, when I set this meeting, the stories started rolling into my inbox and they're concerning, and I don't want people to feel scared. Nobody should have to feel scared. And I know that downtown St. Paul has a homeless problem. And I know that being homeless is not a crime. However, unfortunately, people that prey on the homeless will also prey on us. And that's just the fact. And, it's making it hard to make your way into work when you have to try and get through all of that just to come into work.
I remember when I was on the meet and confer that Ted had found a handgun stashed in an area of the First National Building.
Yeah, it was in the parking area of the First National.
Yeah, and I don't remember that they really seemed to take that too seriously either. It's like, well, somebody dropped it. Well, no, it was stashed, and Ted just happened to look in the right spot at the right moment and found it. So it can get a lot more serious than just being asked for money and stuff.
Well, and
It's
I mean,
way more than that.
we've had people assaulted, people shoved up
Exactly.
against walls,
Yeah, it sounds like it.
people slapped, people. One of our members got bowled over and went into Walgreens. I mean, it's been bad. So, I just don't. And that's just been since we've moved into Great Northern, and that's about 6 months ago. So, you know, and that's with reduced workforce just coming back. It's concerning. Okay. Get in touch with me. I'm pretty easy to find. You were invited off of my MAPE email, and then my state email is what the invitation was through. So both of my emails are available. If you have any trouble getting a hold of me, it's just maureen.dunaway@state.mn.us or m.dunaway@mape.org. Either of those, I can put it in chat too. But I'm going to move on just so we can have some time to chat and have some Q&A and stuff like that. But yeah, one of the other things that we're also looking at doing is setting up patrols, like a buddy system to get people out to the ramps so they aren't going out there by themselves, at least until we can get some more security, maybe. Yeah, because I think experienced officers would be good, but until we get that, at least maybe each other. You know. Supplemental bargaining is something that happens at the same time that negotiations is going on. For those of you that might not know what supplemental bargaining is, it's agency specific bargaining. So things that would only apply to deed. So it's in the back of the contract. It'll be in the supplemental section of the contract. It's usually really small, and there's usually not a lot back there because most of the bargaining happens at the main table. But usually it happens every cycle, and we attempt to get a few things there, and we'll attempt it this round. Last round, one of the things that happened was we renewed the memorandum of understanding for the call center around how they do their vacation for holidays. It's one of the things that we've done. One of the things that we attempted to do was to try to get some telework language strengthened. We'll probably do that again. Maybe we'll attempt to try to get something with parking. There are some agencies that have a parking stipend. Didn't know that. It's a thought. Yeah. Andy, that's not a bad idea. Department of Health did it, and they were successful. It ended up being an MOU, and it took a lot of escalation though. And if we were to get something like that, we would need all of you to stand behind us and possibly be willing to march on the commissioner to get it, but yeah, so there are things to think about. This is an agency that stood up, did their jobs, kept the state running. Health, it's so obvious what they did. We'd have to be able to make a similar case. But yeah, it's not a bad idea. I don't think there are any bad ideas, but so those are the kinds of things we'll be doing that soon. So if you have ideas, get them to a meet confirm member, because one of the things that we wanted to do is to maybe codify some of that reallocation language, because right now they're trying to get it down to 60 to 90 days, but there's nothing that makes them do that makes the timeline short. They can take 2 years or they can take 2 months to do a reallocation. And there's nothing to make that be a thing. And, things like that. And a few other things. So if you have ideas on things that you think that would be specific to deed, we'll probably possibly take another run at trying to get some student loan language in, although that'll probably also be a main table thing. I don't know how much luck we would have, but we can try it. And so think about things that you think should be deed specific. And if you have a good idea, send it to us. But that is what supplemental bargaining is. Yeah. I'm having a hard time following the chat. Could somebody read some of those?
Yeah, I can do that. So one question was, there's some notes about VRS losing staff and the replacement for those staff need training. There was a suggestion of a bonus or temporary pay increase for staff who are training new staff. We are actually looking at doing that in supplementals. We're looking at possibly using the language differential as like, not like the exact model, but like the thing we maybe build off of. A stipend for those of us in outstate who do not have access to a fitness center. We can definitely look at that as well. One thing I do want to note is that the fitness
Nobody has
center is
access.
not, the fitness center is not that, and also the fitness center is not a free amenity. I think we have to pay for it from what I understand. It is, yeah, I mean, the sign-on bonuses are really frustrating when we do, for those who have been working, especially in places like VRS, SSB, Career Force, where you're doing a lot of NUI, where you're doing a lot of direct service.
Well, and people who are in those jobs that didn't
Yep.
get a sign-on bonus doing the same job. I think I know the rationale is that they're trying to fill these hard to fill jobs, but yeah.
Part of making sure that you don't have to fill those jobs is keeping people in them. And then there's a question about a step at the top. That is probably going to be an ask that we make at the table, I feel like, or at least it's going to be something that we talk about pretty extensively. It's something that always comes up because it is a huge problem for not only DEED, but every single state agency.
That would be a main table ask. And so, because that would be something that would change the entire pay structure. So, but yes, they are going to be finalizing, or at least coming up with what is going to be like the negotiations agenda. I mean, they won't be finalizing the proposals for a while, but there's going to be the negotiations convention next week. And so they'll be talking about like what the priorities are and what sorts of things are going to be looked at. So if you haven't gotten to know your regional negotiator yet and joined their CAT, now might be a good time to do that. In Region 5, that's my goal.
Yep, we have 3 regional negotiators, 4 actually, if you count Maureen, even though she doesn't have a region.
No, my region is, the state, I guess, because I'm there as the speaker of the meet confer chairs. So, but yeah, so you can always come to me if you want to talk about negotiations, because I probably know somebody somewhere in your region and can hook you up with whoever that would be. But yeah, why don't you talk a little bit about negotiations, Michael, and so that I'm not doing all the talking in this.
Yeah, so I mean, there might be folks who are very curious about what does the House makeup and the political makeup for this new session mean for us in negotiations. And so, we are entering with a pretty labor-friendly administration, a labor-friendly legislature. That doesn't mean we're going to get that doesn't mean that they're going to be like, hey, do y'all want a 20% cost of living adjustment? What it means, though, is that we have fertile ground to organize and push for a cost of living or across the board that actually is commensurate with inflation, that actually isn't completely eaten up by the rapid increases in food, gas, rent, mortgage. And the way that we do that is through people power. MMB is not a rational negotiator. They're not going to look at the surplus and be like, hey, this means that we can kind of like what Larry said, experiment with retention bonuses and all of that. They're going to look at that and be like, we got the surplus because we did what we did, and we are going to keep doing what we do, which is giving you 2% cost of living adjustments so that we can keep having these surpluses and keep looking like we're a really well-governed state, even though we're balancing our checkbooks on the back of government workers. And so what this means is that we need to push, we need to organize, we need to make it clear that we have a labor-friendly administration. They need to live out their values. And so the way that we do that is through organizing, classic organizing. Talk to your coworkers about joining a contract action team. If you are in my region, talk to me about joining a contract action team. If you're in region 19, talk to Sheena. Rick, what region are you again?
20.
I'm region 20.
If you're region 20, reach out to Rick. We need to be like Kay says, we should be models, and the state should be a model enterprise, and a model employer. And so what region or who we contact, you can always just reach out to one of us and we can help you find that person. Otherwise, you should hopefully have been getting emails from them already. If you haven't, then yeah, please feel free to reach out to any of the negotiators that are on this call and we can help connect you. We will just need to know where you are, or where you work, I should say.
Yeah, and I can usually find who your people are, you know, and I mean, Michael and Gina and Rick would know your negotiator most likely too, but and we're your meet confer. But if you were outside the agency, I'd even probably know your meet confer chair. So, you know, we'll get you hooked up with who you need to be in your region, and if you're not in 501, so we'll get that taken care of. But really, that's what's been going on. We've been doing the meet and confer. We've been doing negotiations and collecting proposals, you know, through the survey, through, you know, suggestions from members, through, you know, various listening sessions and things like that. We've had the safety concerns. We've had, you know, all the various things. Michael's been doing a fantastic job for 5. Rick's been representing down in 20. Sheena's been doing a great job out in 19. And, you know, there's fantastic negotiations reps in the other regions too. They just happen to be in other agencies. So I'm going to open it up now to question and answer. You can either type your question in chat and we'll try to field those. Michael's going to help me with fielding those, or you can raise your hand. Use the raise hand feature because I can only see a certain number of you, you know, on the screen. So if you raise your hand, I'll see that raised hand though on Zoom, because Zoom has that feature.